there's someone hiding in Elbaf, someone who used to be a comrade of Joyboy. So who is this person? It's Belo. First off, owls have long been a symbol of knowledge, especially in ancient cultures like Greek mythology, where they are associated with wisdom, perception, and mystery. That could be why the owl's name Piper seems to understand what Girls is saying in this chapter. Now, when we picture a classic pirate, one name that often comes to mind is John Silver. From Robert Louis Stevenson's novel, Treasure Island. He's a fictional pirate known for two traits, missing his leg, and a parrot that always sits on his shoulder. In the world of One Piece, Joyboy is said to be the first man ever referred to as a pirate, and it's been hinted that he too always had a bird perched on his shoulder, that bird being Belo. But here's where we run into a bit of contradiction, the size difference. Iron Giant MF was notably taller than Joyboy, and even compared to Soul, Belo was enormous. So when you consider how big Belo is, big enough to stand beside giants, it's hard to imagine bird that size just casually sitting on Joyboy's shoulder. Here's something we should keep in mind. Belo is the user of Iku Iku no Mi, the devil fruit that allows the enlargement of non-organic substance. I get it. Probably half of you watching are thinking, Belo himself is creature, right? So shouldn't that mean he can't enlarge himself? Fair question. So let me share something with you. Let's take a look at how Gradius' devil fruit ability was explained in this series. パンクさせられるものは俺自身の体、そして俺の触れた無機物。I can make things burst that include non-organic substance I touch and my own body. So even though his power is technically supposed to affect only non-organic substance, there's an exception made for his own body. I mean, devil fruit users itself. If we apply that same logic to Belo's Iku Iku no Mi, it's very likely that he too is an exception to the rule, meaning he can use the ability on himself, even though he is a living being. In other words, Belo may have originally been small enough to sit on Joyboy's shoulder, as I explained, but over time he used his devil fruit to enlarge himself. And here's what really supports that idea. If you look closely at where Belo is currently sitting, you'll notice there's a chair drawn there. That might not just be decoration. It's possible that Joyboy once sat in that spot reading books with Belo by his side. And now, Belo continues to stay there in much larger than, as if still keeping that seat warm for his old companion, Joyboy. There's another important question we need to ask. Has Belo really lived alive since 800 years ago? I mean, boy's century? According to Soul, here's how he puts it. ここに何百年の昔からずっとおるらしい. The Japanese version, the phrase used is 何百年. It's intentionally vague. It could mean anything from 200 to 900 years. So while it doesn't confirm he's from the boy's century, it doesn't rule out either. And the world of One Piece, we already know there are beings who have lived for over 800 years. The clearest example is Zunisha. And if you look closely, Belo's eyes, made up of overlapping circular shapes, oddly resemble Zunisha's. Then there's MF, who, while not a living creature, is confirmed to have existed during that same time period. Both Zunisha and MF are known to have been companions of Joyboy. And there's more, the Sea Kings, based on what here in their conversation, also seems to have been around for centuries, possible since the boy's century as well. They recognize the mermaid princess as the heir to someone they clearly held in high regard, likely another of Joyboy's close allies. So when Yarl ordered the school to be burned down to save Ronya's life, Notice how Biblo's expression was drawn with deep significance. It reminded me of when the Sea Kings protect Noah, or when Zunisha appeared to open one of borders. In the same way, Biblo may be standing guard over the library in Elbaf, not just for the present, but to protect ancient knowledge for the future. And that makes me think, maybe Biblo really has been alive all this time, carrying on Joyboy's will, waiting for the day that promise is finally fulfilled. So then, one possibility is that the Biblo can also use telepathy. Think about it. Zunisha, the Sea Kings, and even MF never speak to humans out loud. Instead, they deliver their voice directly into the mind of specific people. And since Luffy has been able to hear the voices of Zunisha, the Sea Kings, and MF, it's very likely that he could also hear Biblo, if Biblo was sent to him a telepathic message. Right now, Luffy is in the underworld, Meikai in Japanese, and has no idea what's happening in the world above, I mean Sun Realm. But imagine if Biblo used telepathy to tell Luffy exactly where Ronya is going to fall, and Luffy catches her just in time. That moment could be what makes him up to the crisis happening in Elbaf. That way, Ronya could be saved, because she's a lucky girl. But there's still the issue of Ohara books in the library, which are now in danger of being burned. But let's take a look at the layout of Elbaf. Right in front of the library, there's a fountain of warrior. If the library really does go up in flame, maybe they could throw the books into the fountain. Just like the scholars of Ohara threw theirs into the lake during the Buster Call. It could be another way to protect knowledge and pass it down. And one more thing we should talk about. That massive sword stuck into land of Elbaf. Even by giant standards, it's absurdly huge, far too big to have been made for any normal giant. Which raises the question, could Biblo enlarge that sword using his own powers, his ability, just like he may have done to himself? It wouldn't be out of the question. Alright, let's wrap this up by diving into the biggest mystery surrounding Biblo. And that is, why does he consistently enlarge every book that's brought into the Elbaf library? Sure, one possibility is that Biblo simply wants to make history and knowledge more accessible to the giants, a kind of educational gesture. But I think there's something deeper going on here. Now, Lilith suggested that this book enlarging ability comes from Biblo's Iku Iku no Mi, the devil fruit that allows him to enlarge non-organic substance. But when chapter 1135 was published, that particular fruit's name, Iku Iku no Mi, actually sparked a bit of controversy in Japan. Do you know why? Because in Japanese, the word iku is also slang for to orgasm. To orgasm. It's commonly used to describe climax during sex. So yeah, if you ever have a Japanese partner, you'll probably end up using that word too. That aside, the real meaning behind Iku Iku comes from word ikusei, which means to grow or nurture. So the name isn't meant to be provocative, it's actually tied to the idea of development, growth, and cultivation. And that might be true purpose behind Biblo's power. Not just making books bigger for giants, but symbolically nurturing knowledge. Let's start by looking at the name of Biblo. In Japanese, Bibulo. It could actually be either B or V sound, because Japanese syllable B can represent both B or V. So depending on which version Oda Sensei intended, the meaning changes. If it's a Biblo, like B, it might be play on Bible or even from the Italian word biblioteca, which means library. That would make perfect sense given his connection to book and knowledge. But if it's vibro, then it likely comes from the word live, suggesting something to do with life or vitality. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The name could also tie with Vibro curse in the One Piece world. As you know, Bible curls are special papers that represent the person's life force. When the person grows weaker or close to death, the paper burns away. But there's a thought. What if you could take a burning Bible curl and restore it? Would that bring the people's life force back? At first glance, it might sound like stretch, but One Piece has explored similar concepts before. Take the ability Kage Kage no Mi, for example. When someone's shadow is taken away by the user, the developer, the victim can only exist in darkness. If they are exposed to sunlight, they disappear. Because having no shadow under the sun essentially means you are not supposed to exist. And not only that, Kage Kage user, Moria, can control your shadow, and your body will move against your will, mimicking the shadow's actions. So if that kind of metaphysical link can exist in One Piece, it's not unreasonable to think something similar could happen with Bible curls. And what if Belo, using the power of Iku Iku no Mi, could nurture or grow back the Bible curls that's burning away? That would mean the person whose life force was fading might actually regain their strength. It sounds wild. But within the logic of the One Piece, it just might be possible. So here's something curious about Iku Iku no Mi. It's said to only work on organic materials. But Bible's been enlarging books, right? Now, while books are man-made objects, their materials, paper, ink, even leather covers are technically organic. So maybe the term inorganic isn't quite right, because Oda Sensei chose mukibutsu, which means inorganic. But it's possible that author Oda Sensei actually meant non-living things in this case, rather than strictly inorganic. That's something we'll probably need to double check once the official volume is released. Either way, if Biblo can enlarge the books made from paper, then it's totally reasonable to think he could do the same with Bible curls, since they are made from paper too. And if that's the case, then this ability might actually be capable of something unbelievable, like making someone immortal. Right now, the only character we know who might have lived for over 800 years is Imu-chan. But what if other people from the Ancient Kingdom era are also still alive, thanks to contribution of Biblo's power and Bible curls? Now, I don't think Joyboy himself is still alive. That would be a stretch. But if I were writing this manga, One Piece, and I wanted to bring Joyboy back to appear in front of Luffy, this would be one way to do it. And picture this. In final arc, just once, mysterious pirate with the eye patch appears. And it turns out, he is a revived Joyboy. That would be the perfect dramatic entrance. The ultimate pirate legend come to life. What do you think about that? Anyway, I got so many comments on the latest video. Thank you so much for that. I actually make a point to remember the names and the icons of people who leave the comments like that, so definitely drop by and leave other ones. By the way, I've recently started working in manga translation too, so if you are a manga artist and you are thinking about publishing in Japan, feel free to reach out to me. Also, I'm doing in-depth analysis of One Piece, One Piece every chapter from a native Japanese perspective, right here on my page, so check that out if you are interested. Alright, see you in the next video.